Captain Daniel Foster sat in the command chair of the Vanguard, watching the empty black space ahead. The ship had been traveling through deep space for 6 months without finding anything important. Most missions were like this, boring and slow. Daniel had grown used to the quiet darkness and the endless waiting. The sensors suddenly came alive. Alarms filled the bridge. Lieutenant Hayes jumped from his station and shouted a warning. An HFY warship appeared on the screen. Everyone on the bridge went still. The HFY were killers. They conquered planets and left nothing behind. Stories of their attacks had spread through human space like disease. They did not take prisoners. They did not make deals. They destroyed everything. Daniel stood up and moved to the main. The HFY ship was damaged. Smoke and fire came from its hull. Hull breaches opened like wounds. The ship was dying. He could see that much from far away. Commander Alice Morgan stepped next to Daniel. She was his best officer and his friend. Her face showed worry and anger. She said, "Sir, we should move away from that ship. This could be a trap. The HFY might be trying to pull us close so they can attack." Daniel knew she was right. The military rules were clear. When you saw an HFY ship, you ran or you fought. You did not get close. You did not help. The HFY had killed thousands of human soldiers in battles across the galaxy. Daniel had lost friends and crew to their weapons. But something was different this time. Daniel saw a signal coming from the HFY ship, not an attack signal, a distress signal. Someone inside that broken ship was calling for help. Daniel had never heard of HFY sending such signals. They did not ask for rescue. They did not fear death. This made no sense. "Get a closer scan of that ship," Daniel said. "I want to know what is happening over there." Alice moved closer to him. She kept her voice low so others could not hear. "Sir, this is wrong. You know what they are. You know what they do. We cannot help them." Daniel understood her fear. He felt it too. But he also felt something else, something deeper. If someone was alive and needed help, he could not turn away. That was not who he was. That was not who his crew was. The sensors told them something strange. The HFY ship had internal explosions. Fire spread through many sections, and inside there were few living signs. Only one life form moving through the burning corridors. Daniel made his decision. He told Alice to prepare a rescue team. She argued with him. She said it was crazy. She said it would get people killed. But she also did what he asked because she trusted him, even when she thought he was wrong. Daniel led the team himself. He took Alice and 2 other officers with him. They wore protective suits and carried emergency equipment. The small ship left the Vanguard and moved toward the dying HFY vessel. Each second felt long and heavy. The docking was hard. The HFY ship moved in broken patterns. Its systems were failing. But Daniel was a good pilot. He got his team aboard. They moved into the burning corridors fast. Heat surrounded them. Alarms screamed through the ship. Metal broke and fell from above. The ship was coming apart in pieces. Daniel and his team moved deeper inside, following the sensor readings. They were searching for one life form in a maze of fire and metal. They found the life form in a lower section. It was not what they expected. It was a child, an HFY child. The young one was small and weak. Her body was burned. She was not moving. Daniel stepped forward before anyone could stop him. The child was not dangerous. She could not hurt anyone. She was just young and hurt and alone. He picked her up carefully. She weighed almost nothing. Her skin was hot from the fire. Alice said they had to leave now. The ship would collapse in minutes. Daniel held the child and ran. His team ran with him. Fire chased them down the corridors. The floor broke behind them. They jumped through holes and dodged falling metal. The danger was real and close. They made it back to their ship. Daniel placed the child in the medical bay. The doctors started working on her right away. They cleaned her wounds and gave her medicine to help her heal and to help her sleep. Daniel went to the bridge of the Vanguard. He had to tell the crew what he had done. He had to make a choice about what to say. The ship's log would show they had saved an HFY. That would bring questions from the military. That would bring danger. He called Alice to his private office. She sat across from him with her arms crossed. Her face showed anger and confusion. Daniel said, "We found a child on that ship, just a child. She was alone and hurt. I could not leave her." Alice said nothing at first. Then she spoke. "Sir, that child is HFY. The HFY will come looking for her. They will think we took her as a weapon or a tool. They will attack us. This was a mistake." Daniel knew she might be right, but he also knew something she did not understand yet. He said, "We did what was right. That is what matters. I will not let that child die because she was born HFY. That is not who we are." Alice was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. She did not agree completely, but she would help him. That was what good officers did. Daniel went back to the medical bay. The child was still sleeping. Her body was healing already. The HFY had strong bodies. She would live. She would wake up. And then Daniel would face what came next. He sat beside the sleeping child and waited. He had made a choice that would change everything. He could not go back now. He could only move forward and hope he had done the right thing. Supreme Matriarch Vex received the news while sitting in her war chamber. A human vessel had rescued her daughter. Vex did not move. She did not speak. The generals around her waited in fear. When Vex stayed silent, it usually meant death was coming. Was supposed to be dead. Vex had left her daughter on a damaged ship as part of a trap. The ship was meant to explode and destroy the faction leaders who were trying to take Vex's power. It was a good plan, was not useful anymore. The child had weak genetics and could not become a strong soldier. Leaving her behind saved resources. That was how the HFY thought. Children were tools. Dead tools were less important than nothing. But now was alive. A human had saved her. This changed everything. Vex watched the reports carefully. The human captain was called Daniel Foster. He had broken his own military rules to save an HFY child. He had risked his ship. He had risked his crew. He had gained nothing from this action. The human had done it for only one reason, because the child was alive and suffering. Vex could not understand this. In her entire life, she had never known someone to act without a reason for personal gain. Every action had a cost. Every action had a benefit. That was survival. That was strength. She ordered her spies to watch Daniel Foster and his ship. She wanted to know everything. What was he doing with the child? How was he treating her? What did he want in return? The reports came back strange. Daniel was spending time with the child. He was teaching her. He was being gentle with her. He was touching her with care. HFY did not touch their young with care. Touching meant weakness. Touching meant the child was more important than the mission. But Daniel kept doing it. The spy reports showed him sitting next to, speaking to her in soft tones, giving her food with his own hands. No human general would do this. No human leader would waste this much time on a child who meant nothing to him. Vex called her commanders to her. She said, "Prepare a battle fleet. We are going to the human ship." The commanders were shocked. One of them dared to speak. "Matriarch, the human vessel is smaller and weaker. We could destroy it easily. But the rest of the human military might attack us in return. This could start a galaxy-wide war." Vex did not care about these concerns. She said, "That human saved my daughter. He did this against his own rules and his own laws. He risked his own life for nothing. This debt must be paid." She left the command center and went to her private chamber. She thought about. She had given birth to the child many years ago, but a matriarch did not raise children. Nurses and trainers did that work. Vex had seen only a few times. The child had always seemed weak and disappointing. Now someone else had cared for more than Vex ever had. A human, an enemy, a person from a race that Vex had always seen as beneath her. Vex made a decision that would change her life and her entire species. She would go to the human ship. She would meet this Daniel Foster. She would understand why he had done this impossible thing. 3 days later, the HFY fleet appeared on the sensors of the Vanguard. Not just any fleet. The personal fleet of Supreme Matriarch Vex herself. 80 warships. A force that could destroy entire worlds. Daniel stood on the bridge and watched them come. He knew this was it. This was where everything ended. The HFY matriarch had found her daughter in human hands. She would take her back. Then she would probably kill everyone on the Vanguard. But something unexpected happened. The fleet did not attack. Instead, a smaller warship broke away from the main group. It was the matriarch's personal vessel, and it was moving toward the hunting fleet that had been chasing the Vanguard for the last day. A fleet that Daniel had not even told his crew about because they were already scared enough. Vex's ship fired on the hunting fleet. The battle was short and brutal. The hunting fleet was destroyed completely. None of the ships escaped. No one survived. Vex had used her power to save the human vessel. Then the matriarch opened a channel to Daniel. Her voice was calm and hard. She said, "You saved my daughter when your own kind told you not to. The HFY do not forget such debts. I am coming aboard your ship. We will speak about this." Daniel knew he had no choice. He told Alice to prepare a meeting room. He told the medical team to bring there, and he waited to meet the most dangerous being he would ever encounter. When Vex arrived, she was exactly as terrible as the stories said. She was tall and strong. Her skin was dark. Her eyes were cold and sharp. She wore armor that had been used in 1,000 battles. She looked at Daniel like he was an insect she could crush. But then she saw the child was awake now. She was still weak but getting stronger, and when saw the matriarch she made a small sound, a sound of recognition. Vex moved to her daughter. She reached out one large hand, did not run away. The child reached back and touched her mother's hand. For the first time in her long and brutal life, Supreme Matriarch Vex felt something new, something she had no name for, something that made her want to keep this small, weak child safe from all the darkness of the galaxy. She looked at Daniel and said, "You did more than save her life. You taught me that my own life has been empty. Come with us. I want to understand what you are and where you come from. I want to know why you are different." Daniel knew this was not an invitation. This was a command, but it was also something more. It was a chance to change the galaxy itself. Daniel stood in the center of Vex's war chamber and felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. The HFY commanders looked at him with anger and confusion. A human here, a human in their sacred space. It made no sense to them. Vex sat on her high chair and watched Daniel with cold eyes. She said, "You will tell me everything. Why you saved my daughter, what you expect to gain, how you plan to use her against me. Speak now and I may let you live." Daniel was not surprised by this threat. He had expected it. The HFY always threatened death. It was how they communicated. But he also knew that threats meant Vex wanted answers. If she wanted him dead, he would already be dead. He said, "I saved your daughter because she was alive, because she was hurt, because I could help her. That is all. I expect nothing in return." The generals laughed. The sound was harsh and ugly. One of them spoke. "The human lies. No one helps anyone without gain. This is how life works. Take what you need. Crush what stands in your way. Anything else is death." Vex held up her hand and the room went silent. She said, "Show me your mind. Show me your memories of that day. I want to see the truth." She had a device, a machine that could read thoughts and show memories as images. It was dangerous and painful. Most people broke under it, but Daniel agreed. He had nothing to hide. The device was placed on his head. Pain shot through his body like fire. His memories became images that filled the room. Everyone saw what Daniel had seen. The burning ship, the sensors showing one life form, the child lying on the ground. And they saw Daniel's thoughts, his fear, his uncertainty, his decision to save the child anyway. They saw his determination to protect even though she was HFY, even though she was the enemy. When it was done, Daniel collapsed. His body was covered in sweat. His mind was screaming, but he had survived. Vex stood and walked to him. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Come with me." She took Daniel through the ship to a viewing chamber. Here she showed him the history of the HFY, images of their victories, images of civilizations destroyed. She showed him millions of faces, all of them dead because of decisions she had made. She said, "I have sent billions to death. I have destroyed entire worlds because I needed resources. I have killed my own children when they showed weakness. I ordered my daughter to die because she was not strong enough to be useful. This is what I am." Daniel saw all of it, the bodies, the burning cities, the faces of dying children. He felt sick, but he did not look away. Vex continued, "You saved my daughter, you risked your life for her. You knew she was my enemy. You knew she was HFY, but you saved her anyway. In your mind, she was not my child. She was not the child of the HFY. She was just a child, just a being that needed help." She paused and then asked, "Why do you think differently from everyone I have ever known?" Daniel was weak, but he tried to stand. He said, "Because I am human. Because where I come from, we believe that a life is valuable. All lives, not just strong ones, not just useful ones. Every life matters." Vex walked closer to him. She said, "This is foolish. This is weakness. This is why humans will never rule the galaxy. You care too much about individuals. You should only care about power." Daniel said, "Maybe, but we survive, we thrive. We build things that last. The HFY conquer worlds, but you do not build anything that stays. Everything you touch turns to dust because you do not value anything. You only take." The other commanders would have killed him for speaking this way, but Vex did not kill him. Instead, she smiled. A terrible smile. She said, "You speak truth, and you do not fear me even though I could destroy you with one hand. This is interesting." For the next week, Vex tested Daniel. She brought him before the War Council. She asked him questions about human values and human ways. She showed him plans for conquering more planets. She asked him for his advice on military strategy. And Daniel gave her honest answers. He told her that her plans would work but would leave her with enemies forever. He said that conquest was easy, but holding what you conquered was hard. He said that if she valued only power, she would never have loyalty, only fear. The council members grew angry. They said Daniel was corrupting the matriarch with weakness. One commander stood and drew his weapon. He said, "Matriarch, let me kill this human now. He poisons your mind." Vex stood up and that commander backed away immediately. She said, "No, Daniel does not poison my mind. Daniel shows me things I did not see. He shows me that there are ways to be strong that I never considered." She walked to Daniel. She said, "I will not kill you. You have given me something no one else could give. You have shown me who I am and who I could become. From this moment forward, you will stay by my side. You will be my advisor. You will help me understand this strange human way of seeing the world." Daniel bowed. He said, "I am honored, matriarch." But in his heart, he knew the real challenge was just beginning. Changing one person's mind was possible. Changing an entire civilization was something else. It would take time. It would take sacrifice. It might not work at all. But he had to try, because that was what humans did. They tried. Even when the odds were impossible, Daniel taught her first human word. It took 3 days of patient repetition. The sound was friend. The child could not form the word correctly at first. Her voice was harsh and strange, but she kept trying. By the 4th day, she made a sound that came close to the word. Daniel smiled and told her she was right. Vex watched from the doorway. She had never seen anyone teach a child with patience before. In HFY culture, children were given orders. They obeyed or they died. There was no middle ground, but Daniel was different. He asked questions. He let her try and fail. He praised her for trying even when she failed. Slowly, something changed in the child. She started to smile. She started to ask questions. She started to think about the future as something other than a test to survive. With Daniel's help, was becoming something no Asai child had ever been allowed to become. She was becoming happy. Daniel made a deal with Vex. He said, "If I am to stay here and help you change, then must be safe. No one hurts her. No one trains her to be a soldier. She gets to learn. She gets to grow. She gets to have a childhood." Vex had never heard the word childhood used this way before. In her language, childhood was a period of hardening. It was when young Asai learned pain and discipline. It was preparation for the brutal life of adulthood. But Daniel explained what childhood could be. He talked about playing games. He talked about learning things just because they were interesting. He talked about being loved simply for existing, not for being useful. Vex did something that shocked her own commanders. She agreed. She ordered that be protected from military training. She said that the child would learn in a different way. The generals protested. They said Vex was betraying Asai traditions. They said she was becoming weak, but she silenced them with one look. Months passed, grew stronger and more curious. She learned human languages faster than anyone expected. She asked Daniel endless questions about human worlds. She wanted to know everything. Why did humans care about art? Why did they make music? Why did they tell stories that had no practical purpose? Daniel answered each question seriously. He taught her that humans survived not just because they were strong or smart. Humans survived because they told stories, because they created meaning, because they cared about things beyond mere survival. Vex also learned. She spent hours watching Daniel and interact. She studied the way humans thought and moved and communicated. She began to understand that all her power and all her victories had left her empty. She had conquered systems and destroyed enemies, but she had never created anything that had worth beyond its military value. Then the message came. The Empire had detected weakness in Asai territory. With Vex spending time on Daniel, and the military had become less aggressive, less focused. They decided to attack. A fleet moved toward Asai space. The generals wanted to respond with total destruction. They wanted to end the threat forever, complete annihilation, no mercy, no survivors. But Vex called Daniel to her war chamber. She asked him what he thought should be done. Daniel said, "You have been thinking only in one way for your whole life. Attack or be attacked, kill or be killed. But there are other choices. Show strength but offer terms. Tell them you are strong and will fight, but give them a way to choose peace." The generals laughed. They said Daniel was trying to get them all killed. They said humans were weak and stupid, but Vex ordered them to listen. She sent a message to the commander. She said that if they advanced one more step, the Asai would destroy them completely. But if the Asai would let them leave unharmed. She said the Asai were strong enough that they did not need to kill everything. They only killed those who forced them to. The commander was shocked. An Asai commander offering mercy was unheard of. He did not trust the message. But he also saw the Asai fleet ready for war. He had only two choices: attack and die, or retreat and live. He chose to retreat. The fleet left Asai space without firing a single shot. There was no battle. There were no deaths. The Asai generals could not believe it. They expected Vex to change her mind and attack the fleeing fleet anyway, but she did not. She let them go. When Vex told Daniel what had happened, she said, "Your way worked. We won without destroying. We showed power without using it. This is a new kind of strength." Daniel said, "Yes, and your people saw it. They saw that you could win without killing everyone. Some of them will remember this. Some of them will start to think differently." That night came to Daniel. She was older now. She could speak human languages almost perfectly. She said, "Why did you help us instead of fighting? You are human. My people were your enemies." Daniel sat down with her. He said, "Because when I saw you burning on that ship, I did not see an Asai. I saw a child who was suffering. That was all that mattered. The rest was just history and politics. But you were real. You were alive. That was what mattered. Thought about this. Then she said, "My mother says you are changing everything. She says you are showing us who we could be instead of who we are. Is that what you wanted?" Daniel said, "I wanted to save one child. I wanted to help one person I found suffering. That was my only goal. But sometimes when you save one person, you change the world around them too. Sometimes one action ripples outward and touches many people. Maybe that is what is happening now." Hugged him. It was a human gesture. An Asai child would never do this, but had learned it from Daniel. She had learned that showing affection was not weakness. It was strength because it meant you trusted someone enough to be vulnerable. Vex watched from her doorway again. She saw her daughter, the child she had left to die, hugging a human, and Vex felt that same strange emotion she had felt before, the emotion without a name, the emotion that humans called love. 2 years had passed since Daniel saved a child from a burning ship. 2 years had changed everything. Daniel stood in Vex's war chamber. The room was different now. Gone were the weapons displays that glorified conquest and death. Instead, the walls showed maps of Asai space with indicators for trade routes, scientific research centers, and newly built schools. The Asai had never had schools before. Children had been trained to fight or die. Now they learned to think. Vex entered the room. She moved with the same powerful grace as always, but her face had changed. The hardness was still there, but something softer lived behind it now. She said, "The new colony on Prime is ready. The people who go there will build a settlement based on cooperation instead of conquest. They will use the human model you taught us." Daniel said, "It is a good start. It will not be easy. Many of your people still think the old way is better. They will resist." Vex said, "I know. Change comes slowly, but it comes. Look at my military leaders. 5 years ago, they would have executed anyone who suggested mercy or cooperation. Now they argue about which approach is more effective. They are beginning to see that I am not weak. I am simply strong in a different way." It was true. The Asai military was different now. They still had power and force, but they used it more carefully. They still won battles, but not all of their conflicts ended in total destruction. The galaxy had noticed. Other species that had feared the Asai for generations were beginning to consider trade and alliance instead of war. Walked into the room. She was taller now. She wore Asai warrior clothing, but it was custom-made to honor both her Asai heritage and her human upbringing. She said, "The diplomatic team is ready. We leave for human space tomorrow." This was one of Vex's boldest decisions. She was sending to speak with human leaders. The daughter of the supreme matriarch, born of 2 different worlds, would be the voice of a new kind of Asai, an Asai that wanted peace and cooperation. Came to Daniel and put her hand on his shoulder. The gesture was both Asai and human. He had taught her how humans showed affection, but she had kept the Asai formality of it. She said, "I am nervous. What if the humans do not trust me? What if they remember all the wars and all the deaths?" Daniel said, "Some of them will remember. Some of them will hate you simply because you are Asai, but others will see what you are. They will see the bridge between our species. They will understand that you represent a better future for everyone." Nodded, she said, "I would not be here without you. I would be dead on that broken ship. Or if I lived, I would be a soldier trained only to destroy. But you gave me a choice. You gave me a chance to be more than what my people said I had to be." She left the room to prepare for her journey. Vex walked to Daniel. She said, "You have done more than help a single child. You have changed my entire civilization. In the Asai records, your name will be remembered forever. You will be known as the human who showed us the way to something greater than conquest." Daniel felt uncomfortable with such praise. He said, "I only did what seemed right. I did not plan to change your entire civilization. I only wanted to help one person." Vex smiled. It was a real smile now, not the terrible smile of a predator. She said, "But that is exactly what you did. You helped one person, and that one person was my daughter. And because you helped her, you helped me. And because you helped me, you helped everyone I could influence. This is how change happens. It starts small. It starts with one person choosing to be kind when they could have been cruel. She paused and then continued. I want to ask you something. Will you stay here? Will you become part of our people? You could. You are already more important to the Asai than many of my own commanders. Daniel thought about this. It was a huge choice. Stay in Asai space and help guide them toward a better future, or return to human space and live as a normal human again. But he knew the answer. His place was here, needed him. Vex needed him. The Asai people needed a living example of what human values could create. Someone who was not Asai but who lived among them and showed them a different way every single day. He said, yes, I will stay, not as a captured human, not as a prisoner, but as someone who chose to be here, as someone who wants to be part of building this new future. Vex put her hand on his chest. It was an Asai gesture of honor and acceptance. She said, then you are one of us now, not by birth, but by choice, and choice is stronger than birth. That evening, Daniel stood on an observation platform with Vex. They looked out at the Asai fleet as it prepared for its next mission. The ships no longer looked like weapons built for conquest. They looked like vessels that would carry exploration and trade and peace. Said, tell me again why you saved me. I have heard the answer before, but I want to hear it one more time. Daniel said, because you were alive, because you were in pain, because I could help, and because in that moment nothing else mattered, not the fact that you were Asai, not the fact that your people were our enemies, just that you were a life and you needed help and I could provide it. Said, that is the most human thing I have ever heard. Vex said, it is the most Asai thing this universe will ever see, because in that moment, Daniel became what the Asai have always tried to be. Powerful, but powerful enough to choose mercy instead of destruction, powerful enough to help instead of conquer. That is the true strength that I spent my life trying to find through violence and death. The three of them stood together, human and Asai, the old enemies, now family, now partners in building something that had never existed before, a bridge between species, a path to a better galaxy. It had started with one small act, one captain choosing to save one child. And from that single choice, an entire civilization was learning to become something greater than it had ever been before.